Hate to see it botched? Here's the best bits, a Botching It Up podcast short clip.
You're just going to start with the main event, right? Because everyone's talking about this C4 exploding death match.
I'm a little bit heartbroken, Ben. I have to admit, my voice is softer than usual. I am staring blankly at my wallpaper. I was so excited for this match, and I think what makes everything worse is that this match delivered. You know that I'm not a massive fan of death matches. I've never particularly been one that's partial to barbed wire. These guys had me, and as you talked about in your great introduction, you talked about Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley adding an element of psychology to death matches, and I believe that last night they added more psychology to an exploding ring match than any other two individuals has managed.
So let's talk about the match first before the ending of the entire pay-per-view. Because so many people online are saying the match was shit, it was ruined, the whole thing. But the actual match was fantastic. The two did a really great job.
Really good. Yeah, there was some brutal spots on there. It made sense. It made sense from a storyline perspective. It filled the hardcore quota. I mean, there were some awful shots on there. I winced a few times when, again, the exploding ring match stuff let it down when Moxley goes into the so-called landmine, which is a barbed wire table.
Oh, yeah, but let's talk about this for a second. So both of them are on the apron. Moxley has Omega in a Death Rider, does it off of the apron through basically what's a table, but it's a platform that's covered in barbed wire. Forget the explosion. He just did a Death Rider. Omega goes face first into barbed wire, and Moxley goes back first. And they both take a table bump that's full of barbed wire. I mean, come on.
There's a good minute or two there where Moxley's sitting with skin pierced into barbed wire and can't get up. And some people on the internet said, well, the same people on the internet that said AEW is finished here, said that Moxley was just coming to terms with the fact that the explosion looked shit. I can almost guarantee you that Moxley was not aware of the explosion looking bad. He was figuring out how to try and exert his back skin from the barbed wire.
Yeah, I think they were much more concerned about all the piercings in their body.
This is where I think maybe we were both naive, and where we were looking forward to the exploding ring match a little too much, because you take a spot like that, which on any other show, in any other match type, would be blow away.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun. You look at that and you have a sense, even I did, let alone the casual fan tuning into this. That explosion didn't go too great. Well, you've just watched Moxley nearly kill himself, you know?
For me, I kind of ignored the explosions. I took that away because very early on I realised that's not going to live up to what we were expecting. However, These two were having a great match, so I just enjoyed it for the match and kind of just forgot about the explosion thing.
I think maybe with hindsight, there's a reason that this match isn't thrown around too much, because it doesn't matter what you do in the ring or outside of the ring. People have bought a show to watch explosions.
Yeah, we're all here. We're all here to see someone blown up.
Like, you can go brutally extreme like these two did and have a fantastic death match, but you're still waiting for a bigger pyro.
If they didn't do the whole thing with the ending, the final spot of really was the barbed wire bat that had explosions on it. So when it hit Moxley, it exploded in his face, which I thought was an amazing finish. It was fantastic to look at. It was a great spot. I completely marked out when this happened.
Oh, same.
It was the best explosion, and honestly, I think that should have been close of the night. They shouldn't have done the time down explosion thing.
That's a visual that you could take from any camera shot across the ring, and it'd still look magnificent.
It was so great. It was amazing. And nobody's talking about this. And I don't.
Well, nobody's
know
talking about a lot of these spots. Leg on the exploding.
Yeah, that was clever.
On the exploding ring rope. That was a magnificent spot. I've never seen in an exploding match using white powder. I thought that added a different layer. There's a spot where Kenny Omega full on goes into barbed wire into his arse, probably his arsehole, which just looked horrible.
When Moxley has to like crawl out from the barbed wire board and like pull, and you can see his skin actually tearing.
The whole
Pull
thing
himself
was
out.
right up to Eddie coming down was a masterpiece from storytelling perspective.
Bro, I got worked. Like, full on worked. It's the end of the match. I see how much is left on the pay-per-view because I didn't watch it live. And there's like another 10 minutes to go. He hits the one-winged angel onto a chair. And I'm like, holy shit, there's 10 more minutes to go. And the ring's going to blow up in like 8 minutes' time. Moxley is about to kick out the one-winged angel, the most protected move in all of wrestling at the moment. And I thought he was going to kick out at that moment.
Yeah, no, but they had you, in everything. Like, these guys, honestly, it was very, very clear from the outset, not just the main callbacks with Eddie coming down, but from the tiny things that they did. These guys studied tape. There were so many little callbacks, that the punishing pile drivers, Anita style. Kenny Omega was the only person apart from Terry Funk that I've seen go so close head first to the barbed wire ring ropes. I mean, in the opening minutes, John Moxley was licking the barbed wire, saying, try me. This was a love letter. Like you said when we were talking about Full Gear a couple of months ago, and how you thought that FTR Young Bucks was a love letter to tag team wrestling. This was, give or take the last minute, an absolute love letter to Exploding Ring death matches, and I think they knocked it out of the park in every single way, which just makes the ending so much sadder.
And that ending isn't Moxley or Omega's fault as well. Everything that they could control, they delivered on.
More than delivered on. If it wasn't for that finish, this match would go down in history. As it is, this match will still go down in history, but
for the wrong
as
reasons.
the shockmaster moment of the 2020s.
Okay, right. Well, let's talk about it then. We both love the match. We'll both give it, as death matches go, we'll give it 5 stars, right?
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, it was one of the best exploding matches I've ever seen. They did a fantastic job. So the closing minutes of this match, they handcuff Moxley in the ring, the Good Brothers, and they're going to let the timer go down. This makes absolutely no sense. Like, why would you just not press the button and stop the bombs once the match is over? Would you continue to let the bombs go off?
Well, I mean, they could have done this, looking back now, in so many different ways, man. They could have just put it in a different area. Isn't Davies Stadium giant? Could they not have put this in the middle of the stadium they use for the Stadium Stampede?
Yeah, that's actually the argument. That so Daly's Place is just like an amphitheater that's just in one corner of this massive football arena that houses like 500,000 attendants. So the argument was, like, you could have just done this in the football arena and gone really massive with it.
I've seen other people say, I mean, I agree with them. Like, how could you see that? Because obviously they must have tested it once, right? How could you see that and not think, even if it worked properly, that's not going to work?
Okay. Well, so you're jumping the gun a little bit, but I will explain that apparently they did test run it, and in the test run, it looked good. It wasn't a dud. The explosions worked. It filled up the space, and on camera, it looked like it was a proper explosion. However, I would argue, as an amateur enthusiast in fireworks,
You definitely are. You've got the certification for that.
if you look at all the placings of the pyrotechnics where they put them, it was never gonna look like one big explosion. It was always gonna be like lots of little explosions everywhere. So even if it wasn't a dud fire, I don't know which one was a dud. I think like the main center one that I think came from the top that was meant to go down into the ring. But even if they had done that, you still would have had like sparklers on the side. It wouldn't have looked like that massive explosion we've seen Anita do in Japan.
But if they didn't want to do the Anita explosion because it was potentially too harmful, there are so many things you could do. Look at all of the gimmicks that we've seen with the ring used forever. Like, even Kane's pyro would have looked better, or just make the ring to crumble. That was the main thing coming out of this. I was expecting I wasn't expecting the level of fireworks that we saw in the 90s Japan stuff, but I was at least expecting the ring to just break, like when the Brock Lesnar
like the
Big Show thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Oh, actually, that would have been dope.
Yeah,
I like that.
If you'd literally just broken the ring and poured the smoke in 20 times more, people wouldn't have really noticed.
Yeah, well, the massive joke at the moment, isn't it, that Cody's entrance has better pyro than the explosion.
The fucking gender reveal had better pyro.
What I'm wondering is whether there's a third-party pyrotechnics company that came in and got involved, or whether AEW has some guy on staff that kind of wired everything up.
Well, I think that guy on staff is fired. It's sad, man. And I know we've already been through this. The match was excellent, but just even that opening when Moxley comes out, matches hit different, bro. When people that aren't Shawn Michaels get down on their knees and pray, and then take a shot of Jack. I was so into this stuff.
Yeah.
And then to have what we had, I can see why it's the laughingstock of the world, but for once, I can't get on board with the hate train. This just makes me sad. It doesn't make me want to laugh at the company. It makes me sad. What makes me a little bit mad, Tony Khan's response to this failure in the post-pay-per-view media scrum.
Didn't he try and play it off as it was Omega's fault?
Yeah, so he did the Omega fault thing, which I assume Moxley said after the show, that sort of stuff, which I assume was off the cuff, and Tony Khan ran with it. But he also added, which has gotten so many people's ire, what did you really expect? We can't just blow the guys up, or something to that effect. So instead of just sort of saying, yeah, it didn't go as we planned, we're sorry, he's kind of backing it up in a childish way and saying, yeah, no, like, do you expect us to actually explode people? Well, Tony, that's kind of what you sold.
It's surprising that he said that, because he's been a pretty good promoter up until now. Like, really, it's surprising to come from his mouth that he would go back on a promise.
I'm going to still give him the benefit of the doubt, because unlike a lot of people on social media right now who are, the AEW haters that are waiting for any opportunity to shit on the company.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on at the moment. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give Tony Khan the benefit of the doubt, but I really hope that's not his true colours, where he can't admit to a failure and just say, hey, look, it didn't go as planned, because I think people would respect that a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, maybe he was just flustered and they were asking him questions and he was just struggling to come up with a response.
Can we talk about poor bastard Eddie Kingston for a second?
Yeah, well, when you said that you were just you weren't angry, you were just sad, I was gonna say, yeah, I'm sad mainly for Eddie Kingston. Very quickly, the story goes, Eddie Kingston runs out to try and protect Moxley, pull him out of the ring. He can't do it in time, so he does basically the Onita spot, where he jumps on top of Moxley to defend him from the explosion. So when the sparklers go up, rather than an explosion, Eddie Kingston's looking down, right? Try and put yourself in his shoes. He still hears bang, 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 bang.
100%.
And he doesn't see anything, and then he sells it like he just took a nuclear bomb.
There's no way if you're... I've seen a couple of people criticising Eddie on this. There's absolutely no way if you're laying on the ring over Jon Moxley with your face down and you hit... Like, they might not have looked great, but pyro is still going on around your head. You can't tell the audible level of whether something is good or not. Eddie was face down. Yeah. He couldn't see anything. He just played... He played like the legitimate actor and seller that he is. He's a professional. And that's what he delivered. But why is there no EMT? There was like 4 or 5 EMTs coming down. Could somebody not have given him the heads up?
Yeah, this is what I was gonna say. I don't know if AEW uses headsets all that much. Could have Tony Khan not got in someone's ear? One of those doctors got in and been like, Eddie, it was shit. Don't sell it. Like, get up. Someone could have said something to save face.
And surely. This is, you can agree with me or not, but this is one running thing that I've seen within AEW. When it goes off script, they don't know what to do. When it goes off script in WWE, they just play it on the fly. They're trained to do that. The last time we had this in AEW was when Matt Hardy quite honestly could not carry on competing, but they carried on anyway because they didn't know what else to do with it. This was another example.
Yeah, which is a real shame, because the ending of the show could have been completely different if and that Jon Moxley promo that we've all heard about now, but I assume is untaped because it happened after the show. Mm-hmm. If that had happened live on pay-per-view, I feel like
there is audio footage. There is visual footage of it.
Oh, okay. But if that happened live on pay-per-view, I feel like...
I mean,
I don't know.
This, up until this main event, this was not a $50 pay-per-view. If I had paid $50 and that was the finish, I do think I'd be a little bit upset. And that is even sadder, man, because we were talking in the predictions about how much of a buzz this stuff has made. And we got a fizzle and Christian.
Honestly, this is the point I wanted to make with you, that it fizzled out. But whether it was good or it was not bad, I alluded it to in my intro. For the last week, all we've talked about was AEW. Our podcast and everyone else's is just full of it.
Yeah.
And for this week, all we're talking about is AEW. Don't forget, we're in the middle of the road to WrestleMania season, and all anyone is talking about, for good or for bad, is AEW. If you believe all press is good press, there's no bad press. Tony Khan's doing something right.
You've gone down the Eric Bischoff controversy creates cash route there.
Yeah.
And I mostly agree with you. The only point I would pick up here is this generated more interest than pretty much anything AEW has done thus far, I would estimate. Them delivering Christian and some sparklers, if anybody did pick up this pay-per-view for $50, I doubt they'd be back.
Sure, yeah, people that bought pay-per-view. But before we get on to Christian, I think the story of the Spark, I think a lot of people are going to tune in on Wednesday to see how they deal with it now. Yeah.
I really, really hope they don't do the Kenny Omega fucked up the bomb thing.
Yeah.
That's such a terrible idea. Or even worse, I've heard bandied about Michael Nowazaka taking the blame for it. It just this is one time I would say AEW needs to take the lead of what WWE would do. Either never mention it again.
I was going to say, to be fair, WWE would just roll with it and forget it. They wouldn't...
Do you remember when Seth Rollins poked out Rey Mysterio's eyeball?
Yes.
For about 2 weeks, they half mentioned on commentary that Rey was recovering. And then, somehow, they kind of turned the Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio feud into one of the low-key highlights of SummerSlam. They just carried on with it. This is the thing with WWE. They're tone deaf. And there's a few positives to that. Many negatives, but a few positives. They will just carry on with something. They don't care about public opinion. It doesn't touch them.
I don't know. With all the controversy, I think they have to address it somewhat.
I would either never mentioning it again, or if Moxley's in the mood, say, that got fucked up. I want to get myself fucked up even further so I can go on paternity leave, please. And just have like a crazier thing on Wednesday.
If anyone can save it, Eddie Kingston can deliver a promo that saves it.
Yeah, man. What a guy to have in this horrible position.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Lance Archer, for example, being in this position?
Yeah.
Eddie Kingston.
But that's why I feel bad for him, because
okay.
This was obviously Eddie Kingston's big face turn. Like, he's going to be a completely new character after this.
Dude, that was the thing. That was the thing, man. Like, when he came down and laid over Moxley, I'm not into the AEW lore. I actually kind of dislike when they do long-term storylines. But I loved that. I thought that was god-tier storytelling. I thought that was so good because you could have Kingston turn face, slowly build up. You could have a little program against Omega, which I assume was their plan. And then Moxley and Kingston come back for a little bit of a tag team for a while to spruce things up.
There's so much you could do with it.
It was a great idea.
Well, I mean, he still could face turn because he's still the hero of the day. He didn't know the explosion was going to be shit.
And that's how I hope he plays it off. That is really how I hope. Because I can't remember who it was. I'm not sure whether it was... I think it might have been Tony Schiavone. Came in like an angel towards the end of that match. Or maybe it was Excalibur, actually. One of them said, it's just too hot in there. And they were desperately trying to save it. They was trying to be like... They've passed out from the heat of the pyro.
Right. Yeah.
Which was such a good save. If that's Excalibur, that's my first congratulations to him.
Oh, mate, it wasn't Excalibur. So the sparklers go off, and Excalibur starts going, "Oh my god, the devastation! This is crazy!"
Fucking idiot.
And both JR and Schiavone aren't saying a thing. I can just imagine at the announcers booth, they're both just looking at Excalibur like, Dude, cut it. You can't sell that. Just fucking stop.
So no,
Like, could you imagine JR's face?
Well, it must have
when it
been
went off?
it must have been old pro Shivani then, who was like, oh, they've passed out from the heat or something. JR gave a very special twist on his God Almighty right at the end of the show. I don't know whether you caught that. He said God Almighty, which was great.
Like, share, and subscribe to keep it botched up, brother.